stuff as we go along.
Oh, did they come on?
Hey, good evening. I keep on wanting to say good morning because it's usually a morning, but it is morning where my guests are just about still morning. Hi, everyone. It's great to be back after the Christmas break. Happy Christmas to everybody.
Yeah.
And it's Conversations with Compassion, and it's me, Helen Ferguson. And if you haven't come across me before, I'm a specialist trauma therapist for women and men when they want to work with me. And I specialise in helping women emotionally recover from childhood trauma, CPTSD, attachment, relational and developmental trauma, and sexual abuse. So I set up Conversations with Compassion because I wanted to really start to bring an inspirational conversation to the fore around helping women to embrace self-compassion on their healing journey. Because I was hearing from a lot of women that it's self-indulgent, that it's it's ego, it's narcissistic, they don't have time for it, that we don't have time for it. And I kind of wanted to dispel that myth. So through Conversations with Compassion over the last year, I've had amazing guests, and I am so excited to have coffee and cocoa with me today. I've had some amazing and inspirational conversations, and I think this is going to be up there, if not above, any of the conversations that we've had so far. And I'm really, really pleased to welcome Coffee and Cocoa. I'm not going to introduce them. They can do that themselves much, much better than I can. And so I'm going to hold. I'm going to hand it over to you, Coffee and Cocoa. And please just welcome and let everybody know who you are.
Well, welcome to Coffee and Cocoa.
I knew you'd get it in. I knew you'd get it in. Thank you.
I'm Coco. That's Coffee.
Yes. So, Helen, we're so glad to see you and just be back with you. And it's just amazing where we've both gone. And gosh, it's probably been over a year now since we met.
I think it is. I was thinking about that today. I think it is over a year since we met. And I went live with you, I think, January last year, I think, or something like that. Yeah, it was a while ago.
Yes, but Coco and I always love being with you, and Coco always loves listening to your accent. So
I love it. It's amazing.
She just becomes mesmerized by it.
I do. It's when I'm doing meditation with anyone, I do guided meditation, and people kind of go, "Gosh, wow, yeah, we can feel it." So, my voice changes obviously when I do that, but no, I think the accent, yeah, Coco, I can send you audios of me if you like, if you.
I think it's great, but like Coco said, we're Coffee and Cocoa, and we've been over a year now. We've been educating and raising awareness about child sexual abuse. So what started off as just something we thought would be for our community, and it came from Coco's desire when she was in the 3rd grade and found her voice. She wanted to help others find theirs. It was you want them to find the freedom
that I felt. Yeah.
The freedom that you felt. Yeah. And so she knew she wanted to do that when she was in the 3rd grade. And God, when did we start? 7th grade.
7th grade, sometime around October.
Yeah. So when she was in 7th grade, it kind of came out as Coffee and Cocoa, and we don't really know what we're doing. We just take the next right step.
Do any of us actually know what we're doing? No. I would question whether any of us actually know what we're doing.
The funny thing is I have no idea what I'm doing, but I love what I'm doing.
And that's the most important thing.
So I never could have imagined that I would speak about child sexual abuse, that I would talk about sex, like, and sexual development. Like, it's like the S word is like my favorite word. Like I speak about, normal sexual development, and, people ask me what I do, and I'm like, oh, I raise education and awareness about child sexual abuse. And they're, because it's not the typical answer. I don't work in an office. I don't, do different things, but I can't imagine my life today doing anything else than what we do. So, and it looks different in a lot of different ways. What do we do? Coffee and Cocoa is about raising that education. So we have a Tuesdays. What do we do on Tuesdays?
Tough Topic Tuesday, where we talk about tough topics that are usually not they're not talked about and are not really appropriate in today's world. like it's always pushed off to the side. So just bringing it back and making it normal.
Yeah. So that's like the whole goal with normalizing conversations that people don't have, and they're the conversations that we need to have.
They are absolutely the conversations that we need to have, instead of them being stigmatized and felt as conversations that need to be had in secret. That that there's something dirty about the conversation.
Yes.
Whereas in fact they need to be very open conversations and very visible conversations. That because if we don't have those conversations, how does anybody, a child, a young person, an adult, open up about what their experiences are?
Exactly.
and feel safe too, and I that now I don't specifically work with children. I used to work with traumatized and abused children when I was in my younger days, but when I first kind of started out, if you like, as a therapist, that was my specialism. And so I would, when children were disclosing to me, their capacity to do so was so limited. But I think we have to have these conversations to be able to allow anyone to think and feel safe to say, this is what is happening for me, this is how I feel, and this is what I need help with.
Yes. And I think the question, like, what, you were 12 years old when we started?
12, and then we had my 13th birthday with coffee.
Okay. There's Nigel saying, what age is 7th grade? And yeah, because in the UK, I'm in the UK at the moment, but I live in France, so in France it would be different again.
It was when she was 12, and then we actually celebrated her 13th birthday on Coffee and Cocoa, and we just recently celebrated her 14th birthday on Coffee and Cocoa.
Right.
So so it is I don't know, it's pretty exciting. But like you said about feeling safe, and that's one of the things, like, we've extended out, and now we have the TWC Clubhouse. And that stands for Together We Can, because I believe that together as a community, as people, the things that Coco and I've learned over the past year is just how lacking our whole society is. And it's worldwide. We have guests from all around the world. And we've learned that, when we walk through what we, the sexual abuse that we had to recover from, you felt alone. We felt completely alone. And as a mother, trying to help my 4 children through this, and the behaviors, and like you said, the disclosing, and the authorities, and I mean, I was spinning around, still trying, working 3 jobs, trying to put, just trying to do everything and still be a mom, and it was so overwhelming. But what we found is it's like this for so many thousands and thousands of people. And that is so disturbing to me, like, that there's people, I mean, I know how hard it was, and that there's more people like that. And Coco says the same thing, you don't want to go back.
I would not go back and I don't want it to happen again, but I wouldn't go back and change it, because then it would change where I am today.
Right. Yeah, I get that.
So, it's like we've accepted our story as our story, and we've accepted the things that have happened to us, and we've accepted, and like I told my kids going through it, it's not our fault that these things happen to us, that somebody chose to do these things to us. It's not your fault, it's not our fault, but it is our responsibility to deal with these things, because they're inside of us now, and we can't just walk around and attack somebody else because we have this pain inside of us. So we have this responsibility to deal with it so that we can be people in society. Sometimes I go through stages and I tell people I'm not fit for public consumption. Like, there's like times where I do not need to be in public because I'm just not mentally well. And so therefore, I can hurt somebody else in that. And I never want to do that. Not to say it doesn't happen, but.
And that is about both of you. It's about your awareness of yourselves, and and like you say, what you've had to experience because of the choices of somebody else. Then the choice that you have is how you recover from that, how you heal from that, whether you become defined by it it's not, but I always say it's not your story to own. It's in terms of the choices that other people made. What's your choice is the story that you then, the narrative that you then have from it,
Right.
which is what you do with your life, and how you use that experience and those experiences to inspire, to move forward for yourself, and to say, and to be who you are, which is exactly, Coco, what you've just said. You wouldn't necessarily go back and change what had happened, because of who you are now from it. And so that's not a defining of you from your experience. It's actually you saying, actually, this is who I am, and this is who I want to be, and this is how I want to help people. This is what I want to show people, because what you're showing people by what you're doing is that you can heal, and you can recover, and you can have the bad days when you can't face the world, and you just kind of want to be underneath the duvet, the quilt or the duvet, the blanket, whatever, and say, I can't deal with the world today, but I'm going to be able to deal with the world tomorrow, I think.
Right. And that was, and we were talking about that before we started, those are those pivotal moments of that self-awareness, and being able to give myself permission. I used to, if every moment wasn't filled with something productive, then I would beat myself up. And so the standard that I didn't have the standard for everyone else. I had the standard for me, and it was a standard that I could never achieve. Like, it was never, ever, ever good enough. Like, nothing was ever good enough. It didn't matter. I was like Superwoman. The amount of things I did, and it was still yet never good enough, So, just that, like, self-compassion, to give myself a break. And, I had a meeting the other day, and I told my friend, I'm like, if we need to change this, that's okay. I could go lay down for an hour. I could have never done something like that, but there was things that I had dealt with that morning. And I can now give myself that time to time out from the world, because I know that I'm not at my best, and I don't, and, so now it's like, I can be more productive in 30 minutes when I'm my best than I can in 4 hours when I'm not,
And one of the things that you're describing, when you're doing all the things, is a trauma response. It's because you're trying to fill the space, because actually what happens when you pause? Well, you start to think, you start to feel, you start to, you start to kind of really notice. Absorb. That was the word I was going to use, and I'm actually glad that you chose it, Coco, because that was exactly what I was going to say, is that you kind of start to absorb. It feels like a sponge, you kind of absorbing everything. But when you fill the space, when you're doing, with the distraction and the everything, and the, oh, got to do this, got to do that, it's a trauma response, because it's like, well, how do I deal with what happens when I pause, which is the absorbing. And what you've done, whether you know it or not, is through self-compassion, through compassion. And because compassion and self-compassion is the cornerstone of self-acceptance and self-awareness, is you've kind of gone, right, this is what I need to do. This is what I need for me. Right. And this is how I'm going to do it. Yes. So I don't know whether you know that you did that through self-compassion.
No, that's why I always love my counselors. I always love my counselors, because you guys give words to things I just, and it's funny. It's not funny, but, my dad was a recovering alcoholic. So a lot of what I learned was through those 12 steps, and not necessarily knowing the names of them, but he lived it. And so, and not only did he live it, but I sat around the table with all these other people that needed to have a conversation about it. So without knowing it, they taught me a lot. And so when my own world blew up, those guys that sat around the tables with us, those were the lessons. And so it prepared me for, walking through this. Now, of course, we all have to, I carried a lot of shame and guilt. And this is what's crazy about child sexual abuse, or it is sexual abuse, or I don't know, Helen, it's probably about any trauma, but we carry the shame and the guilt and blame that somebody else did. It wasn't, and that's what was amazing. I mean, to go from where I was, and then to literally have my head down at the ground for a year. It was probably a couple years. I couldn't even pull my head up because I was embarrassed and I was ashamed and I was guilty and it was my fault. And yet I wasn't even there. I didn't choose to do those things. I didn't, so it took a long time. And, I think one of the moments was just, with one of my counselors and just realizing that I finally was able to kind of turn a corner, that this was, I guess that when I did find out, I moved. I did, I did the next right step. I was trying and, and even though it didn't always go the way I wanted, I was trying and I was trying in the right direction. So it's not like I just found out. And unfortunately, people do not realize this. There are so many family members. We've heard so many stories of moms who find out and they just tell their own children to be quiet and don't tell anyone because it's been going on in families for years, incest. And so they're told to keep quiet. So they tell, but nobody knows how to handle it. Nobody knows what to do. And they continue. And, how much worse to just know that it doesn't matter that somebody's hurting you and nobody cares. And the people closest to you don't care. Mm-hmm. And even though, and it took you
a long time
because the abuser had told her, I don't care, had told me, and they believed all of that. So it took them a while before they really believed that I did care and that I was not okay with this. Mm-hmm. They believed I was, and that I knew that I was, and, that I didn't care and it was okay with me. And it took years for them to trust me that, and see my actions, I guess, mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm speaking for you in this, but.
Oh, no, you're totally right.
Well, good. I'm right about something. Woo! Go, Mom.
Go, Mom, for being right.
I'm not always right as Mom,
But you're right, actually, because what stops children, what stopped you, Coco, was fear. Mm-hmm. And even though probably subconsciously, unconsciously, you knew your mum would listen and be there and be compassionate and keep you safe. But what goes first is fear.
Yes.
And so, that overcoming that fear, and my God, how you've done that, Coco, is inspirational to anyone. It gives me goosebumps, and I do get emotional and get a bit teary-eyed about it. Is how you managed to overcome that fear, that amount of fear, to be able to then say, this is what's happening, this is what I need, and to know then that your mum was just going to compassionately go, oh, I'm here, And
when I think that, like, what we're doing with like the TWC Clubhouse and the building safer communities, and that is about the education of everyone. We cannot leave it all. And, we tend to think that it's, all the school's responsibility, or it's all the, the police department's responsibility. No, it's adults' responsibility to keep children safe. It's all adults' responsibility to be able to have these conversations, because Helen, it, and, people out there that don't know what the word disclose means, but that's when a kid tells you, that's when somebody tells you about the sexual abuse that's happening to them. It wasn't me that she first.
Or any abuse.
Yeah.
Or any abuse. Yeah.
Or any abuse. So to disclose that information, and it wasn't me that she disclosed to, it was a counselor that she finally opened the door. I knew that there was sexual, there was something sexual. I knew who it had to do with. And I knew it was greatly affecting my children, but I didn't know anything for years except having to like deal with these outbursts and these behaviors and just awful. But it was a counselor that she disclosed to. But, we need to be prepared as adults of how to hear these children, how to see these children, how to respond to these children. Because I can tell, I've improved greatly, but it's difficult. It's
massively difficult. Absolutely.
When you're, blindsided with that kind of information, it's a lot, but it doesn't have to be if we normalize and we get that, we educate ourselves and, if we accept. And I think the biggest thing is acceptance. If, people don't want to talk about it, and they think if they don't talk about it, well, child sexual abuse isn't happening. child sexual abuse has been happening for thousands and thousands of years. Like it is happening, and it's happening. And this is the other acceptance. It's happening in your neighborhood, and it's happening in every community, every town, everywhere. But we think if we don't talk about it, but it's happening. So the acceptance, I guess, is the big thing. Acceptance that this is happening. So what are we going to do about it? We're going to talk about it. We're going to have compassionate conversations, and we're going to
have compassionate conversations. Exactly. And I think it's interesting, you know, I kind of want to also make the point that, you know, there's a lot of adults out there that have experienced childhood sexual abuse that still haven't disclosed, that they've been holding on to that. And so my experience of working with women and men, occasionally, like I say, occasionally I do work with men. They get past all the pink and purple branding and kind of, and so, you know, one of the things that, you know, I've often come across is people having memories, flashbacks, and not having had the capacity to disclose when they were children, and have held on to that experience, and in a sense blocked it out, still having the trauma responses, but blocking the actual physicality, if you like, of it out. And then, you know, coming to me and saying, well, I've been having these dreams and I'm having these experiences, and I'm like, you know, well, you know, this is what let's explore this, because this is what I think, you know. And then this, and some people kind of saying to me, well, I didn't know whether you'd believe me. And I say to them, well, why wouldn't I believe you? You know, why would I not believe you? You know,
you had trouble with that though too, the belief.
Yeah. I thought I was going crazy, like, oh, since I what's the word? Totally forgot it. But where my mind would go somewhere else to disassociate.
Yeah.
And then I would be like, well, I remember this happening, but I also don't remember it happening.
Yeah.
It's like it's there but not.
It becomes fragmented. It becomes a splitting. Yeah.
And when she first started working with that counselor, you know, her ability to dissociate was huge. And you could see, you know, and that's why I just watch people's eyes. You can see when people check out.
Yeah.
And that was, you know, a lot of the reason that we were able to get through a lot of healing was just watching eyes. And it was like, whoa, something just happened. And I don't know why what I just said caused you to check out, but you just, you know, like
you just did. Yeah.
You just did. And so then we would have to investigate, like, what did that cause you to feel? Like, you know, and we did so much healing through that with all of my children, like figuring out, what did I just do that made you feel a certain way? Because it wasn't intended on my end, but that was what was received on their end. And like you said about the memories coming back, you know, that was the thing for me, and the crazy part. But I was 38, you know, when they came back, and it was just like, and I remember twice. And the second time I was able to ask someone, you know, I have this memory, but I thought I was crazy. Like, where is this coming from? But there was another person that was around, and they were able to confirm that I was right. And these are the things that happened. And so they gave me just a little bit of info. And so I'm so grateful, because I knew I wasn't crazy. But I can only imagine for those who, when their memories come back, like you said, Coco's a rare example. And that's what people don't understand. Children.
No, Coco, you are actually, Coco, a very rare example.
My children are rare, and not just because I think they're amazing and awesome, but because I'm their mom. But they're rare because what people don't understand is children rarely speak about the sexual abuse. It's what you said, Helen. It's when we're 38. It's when we're 40. I know 60-year-olds and 70-year-olds, and I know people who, you know, they're retired and they have dinner, you know, holiday dinners with their abusers, and sit across the table from them, and, you know, different things like that. So there's a walking silence that is everywhere. Yeah. And so, but you said it, most of us, we don't get to deal with it until we're an adult. And then the bad part is as an adult, I mean, for Coco and them, it was difficult because they still had school laws, school responsibilities. I mean, to have to go to counseling, they went to counseling for years, every week. And then you're still trying to be a kid in school, and you're dealing with
you're
all
still
of
trying to
this
be your
stuff.
typical, young child, a teenager, and all of those things, and trying to, for want of a better phrase, try and fit in,
Yes.
to be typically a child, to be enjoying, life as a child, but there's this shadow,
Mm-hmm.
and it's
Literally.
literally a shadow. And how do you then kind of balance the two?
Right. And I was so proud, like the school they go to now, I was so proud of the secretary. I don't know who it was. One of my children, I needed to call in sick one morning. And the secretary asked me, they said, are they taking a personal day or are they sick? And I said, they're really sick, but thank you for asking, because I'm glad that you recognize children need personal days too. We forget that these kids handle so much. And then when you talk about this COVID pandemic and all this stuff, kids already handle a ton. But I thanked her for like recognizing that we don't give children credit for all that they carry. And we're not willing, not everyone. We're not doing a great job at listening. We need to improve as adults at really listening to children and really understanding, and really being compassionate and empathetic and understanding. We can learn so much from them. They're so wise, and so it's just like, but they're humans too, carrying the same feelings that we do.
Yeah, and often carrying bigger feelings,
Yes.
the bigger emotions, and often emotions that can't necessarily be vocalized. They don't necessarily know the name of them. It's just this big feeling, which, even as adults, we're kind of still carrying around stuff that, emotions that are big, and we can't necessarily name them. We might say anger or sadness, or, but actually you go behind those and you've got much more complex emotion. I always describe anger as a kind of bodyguard to much more complex and unspoken emotions, but they're emotions that we need to name.
Yes.
And you don't know the name for them, like the
but when
feeling
you don't know the name for them.
Well, and that's so big, Helen, that you said that, because I had pretty much graduated, in a sense. I'm at as needed appointments with my counselor, so I still check in as needed, and I'm grateful for that. And I had this like moment. I mean, it was scary, because I think I could have hurt somebody, and I've never been like that, that I remember. And so I made an appointment Monday morning. I was texting her like I needed to get on the calendar or whatever. And that's what she did for me. By the time that I got to the appointment, I had already worked through all the steps, and I had, and we were able to laugh about it. But the one thing I still wasn't able to do was name that emotion. And it was, and she was able to just kind of shrug her shoulders, because she knows so much of my story, and just be like, yeah, that hit on your fear of rejection and your fear of abandonment. And it was just like, and it felt so good to understand the words, to be able to connect to why I felt the way I did, and why did that happen inside of me, and she was just able to, and then we just had a great conversation.
So there's like this, light bulb kind of moment when anybody kind of says to you, I think you might be feeling this, and they start to connect the dots for you. I mean, a lot of sorry, any of my therapist colleagues are going to hate me for this, but a lot of therapy is about connecting the dots. It's, it's about putting the pieces together, and being able to kind of create that whole that says, this is what you're experiencing, this is what you're feeling, helping you verbalize that, helping you understand that and process that emotional agility, to then say, well, what do I need from that?
Well, but you said it, like it's like dumping a 500-piece puzzle out on the table, and when I was walking, I'm going to sound like Coco for a minute here, man. She's so wise. She teaches, but it's like dumping a puzzle out there on the table, and it's just a mess. That's what inside I was, without knowing it,
And like the corners being wavy. Yeah. Instead of just the square corners, it's like a little wavy corner.
Yeah, like, because your boundaries are just like,
They're just all over the place. Yeah.
you have nothing. And it's just like, but as you begin to connect the dots, and I mean, I'm a big fan of counselors, and we've had great counselors, but we've also had some that we just weren't able to help us.
Yeah.
And, and that's why I actually do coaching and stuff now, because I realize how lacking the resources are after walking through it. But, being able to put those puzzle pieces and connect the dots, it's like, now I have this puzzle in front of me, and it's beautiful. It's got some ugly, but even those ugly spots, it's so beautiful. And what you said, I'm able to identify, oh, that's the piece over there that I want, or that's the piece I need,
Yeah.
And so now it's like, when I need a piece to go in, or I want a piece to go in, raising that deserve level and stuff. And now I'm able to be like, oh yeah, that fits into my puzzle perfectly, But before, my puzzle was just a mess and up here in my brain. I don't know.
And I think just, listening to you both, and I always love it. I love talking to you both. I really, always.
I'm coming to see you sometime. We're coming
there. I'm on a plane as soon as I can as well. But one of the things, just because usually, like I said to you, I have questions that I ask people. I haven't needed to do that, today, and I don't always need to do that anyway. But actually, what you've described, purely in its most wonderful kind of way, is compassion. Is the compassion that you, Coco, needed for yourself, because the very point at which we say that we need help is the point at which you recognize self-compassion, and that you say, that's what I need. When we say this is what I need, and when we're able to kind of really verbalize it and say it to somebody else, that's the first step of saying, of being self-compassionate. And when we recognize in somebody else that what we're going to receive is compassion, you have this amazing experience.
Yes.
And when there's that reciprocal, so when it's that two-way, that's fluid, that's safe, that's you saying to yourself, this is what I'm giving to me, and somebody else is there saying, do you know what, I'm going to give it to you too. And then as a family, giving that to each other, you've just, I've literally got goosebumps and I could cry, but because I am a bit of an emotional woman like that. I cry at the end of King Kong. I'm terrible.
Coco cried at Spider-Man. Oh, I just told on her.
But what you literally just described is how powerful compassion and self-compassion and empathy has been for you. And what you've described for anybody listening, and I know a lot of people actually watch on replay, is how powerful and empowering that process is when you trust in it. Yeah. When you make that first step, when you're able to say, when you feel safe to say, this is happening for me and I need help. You're saying to yourself, you're giving yourself compassion. You're saying, this is what I need and this is how I'm going to do it. Because you recognize then that there's somebody else that's going to give that back to you. And when you do that, you then step over fear, which has been blocking you, which has been saying, don't do this because this bad thing's going to happen. You then step over it because you say, actually, no, because what I'm experiencing now is compassion. And I know I'm going to get it from other people. They may not get it right, because we're not always good at getting it right. But we may, do it wrong sometimes, because even in therapy sessions, I get it wrong and I say something and then I go, oh God, I got that wrong, didn't I? And that's, and then it's about recognizing that.
Yeah. And it's okay to be wrong.
It's okay to be wrong. It's okay to tread on the glass sometimes, because that's what's going to happen, because we're human.
Right.
But everything that you've just described about your experience, about your connection with each other as well, and kind of, both of you independently saying, recognizing what you both need, is self-compassion and compassion and a compassionate relationship, a compassionate conversation.
Yeah.
That's both that's both verbal and non-verbal, because compassion is, is non-verbal too. And I always talk about listening with your heart ears. So when I'm actually not just working with people, actually, any of my friends would say, and my family would say, if there's anything that they recognize in me, it's listening with my heart ears. There's a difference between listening and being heard.
Yeah.
And when you're truly heard, you're listening with your heart ears, you're listening with your compassionate ears, and you're saying, I can do this. We can do this. And it's what you've described is an incredibly powerful process that you both have been through, and it's inspiring, absolutely inspiring. When's the book coming out? I just kind of want to know.
Oh, the Coffee and Cocoa book?
Yeah. When's it coming out? Because it needs to.
It needs to. It's funny. I wrote a book called My Father's Table. It's been out for a long time. I don't really talk about it, but it was funny because that book, I thought I was doing for someone else, but in reality, it was everything that I needed to hear to rescue my own self. But there is actually 2 in my closet that need to be pulled out. But the one's called A Hero's Heart, and it's been in the making for, well, it's pretty much done, I think, but I haven't touched it in years. So, but yeah, I mean, I think the other thing too, for, anyone listening or whatever, it's not always pretty.
No.
It's not pretty. I mean, I was sitting here as you were thinking or talking and stuff, and I was thinking about, laying under the bed with Coco and crying, and I just over and over, and she's crying, and we're laying under her bed, and I'm crying. I'm up under the bed with her, and I'm like, it's not that Mama didn't care, it's that Mama didn't know. And I mean, I just had to keep saying it over and over, and I'm crying. And or the time that we in your counseling thing, when you carried all the stuff, and you were jumbled, and I had to come along and carry it with you. And or this is one of my favorites, and it's so cool to have, not that everything is perfect, we still have issues in our house, or times I don't get it right, or when I think my kids should listen better, or we still have things like that. But this is one of my favorites, and it happens to be Coco that did it, but I got it wrong, and I wanted to fix it. And she was just like, stop, I need you to listen to me. And that was all she needed me to do. And I loved that, because it was like, oh, okay. And so I was able, but we don't know how to do that as people. Our social emotional learning, like that's one of the things that I plan to do through the TWC Clubhouse, is just like a whole social emotional reset, because our social emotional skills as humans is just so lacking. And that, but another thing too is like, I don't know, just, it's a process. Or a process. It's a process.
You've done very English. Go the process.
Did I sound good on my process? It's a process to get there, and it's okay. Yeah. And it's okay that some days it's ugly and some days it's beautiful. And it's like, it's okay. And it's okay that it is what it is in this moment. And because then when you step back and look at that puzzle, it's just like, wow. I mean, I'm in wow of my children, and just wow of the life I live today. Like, wow, I can't even believe that we are where we are today. Like,
I'm wow about you too. I won't even attempt the American accent, but I'm wow about you too, because everything that you have achieved, and like you say, it's messy. Anybody that thinks healing, is going to be perfect is slightly deluded.
Slightly.
Because it is messy. It's not. You can be really up one day, in one session, and then the next session I might see someone and they've gone, they're flat again, and they're what some of my clients would say is snotty mesh. They're kind of in the space with me, and but it's online, but in the space with me, and sometimes they can't even look at me, and that's okay, and part of any acceptance, part of any compassion, part of any part of any awareness of supporting people, guiding people, helping ourselves, is knowing that it's going to be messy, and that even after any therapeutic process. So I have a 3-month Heart of Healing Trauma therapy program, and women finish with me, in that program, and generally don't need, there isn't anybody that's continued with me one-to-one. They've actually just needed, they've finished, they're liberated, but their journey is continuing. So it's getting people to a place where their journey, they feel safe in the onward journey.
Uh-huh.
And
there's different steps to it. Yeah, you get there's different steps along it, and there's different things. And I would encourage, I don't know exactly how it is, but going through the same program multiple times is also good.
Yeah.
I get out some of the same books and I read them, and and it's like the where I am today and what I received from that today is different than what I did the last time.
Yeah. And so, at the end, in fact, you're what I say to Emma, what any woman and man that has worked with me is basically at the end of that 3 months is that they have an emotional toolkit. And that emotional toolkit they can go back into, they can dive back into whenever they need it, whenever they need to re-go over something, because it's theirs. And it's, it's a very comprehensive package of, emotional toolkit of, all sorts of different worksheets and audios and things like that, that by the end of that program with me, they've got that and they can dip back into it and just recognize when they might need that. And some women get in touch with me a couple of years later and say, I was thinking about this and was wondering, what else might I need. We have a conversation around that. And it's being open, as children, young people, as parents of children and young people, being open to saying what else is needed at any particular point. Because it's the perfection doesn't exist. It's fear in a fur coat, but it's kind of, perfection doesn't exist. Feeling safe does, and that there's a difference.
There is a difference.
Yeah. And what you're describing is a real sense of safety at the moment, but sometimes there's wobbles to that.
I'm just so grateful that we don't wobble as much as we used to wobble. We used to do a lot of wobbling. Now we only occasionally wobble.
When you wobble now, you do it with compassion. You kind of go, this
right, and it's that transferring of the skills. Like you're talking about the toolkit. It is, and that's where I'm big on. I tend to work in at-risk situations with students, high risk, just huge ACEs scores type people, and it's that thing. It's like having that toolkit of what works. And, it's just, that's what I want to empower just more people with. Just, you don't have to be a counselor. You don't have to be, a social worker. I don't know what they call them in France and England, but you don't have to be in a public service of counseling or this, that, or the other. Everyone needs these toolkits because you need them for yourself. You need these toolkits for your own self-compassion, to get through there. And I'm just so big on that. And to go from such a place of hurting to a place of where we are today, everyone deserves that. Like Coco said, I mean, that's what started Coffee and Coco. She wanted everyone to have that freedom. And I want everyone to have that freedom. I guess I'm kind of like you.
I think I'm like Coco too, because I want everyone to have that freedom. I think we should all just be, I think I just now need to be Helen Coco Ferguson. I think I'm
channel the inner Coco.
Channel your inner Coco. And
we need to get shirts made that say that. Channel your inner Coco.
And I think I can see the mugs, I can see the t-shirt, the baseball caps, I can see it now. Channel your inner Coco.
That is awesome. I think you should work on that.
I have absolutely loved this conversation. I think it has been incredibly inspiring.
Aww.
And I just kind of want to, because I'm very aware of the time there and the time here, and usually I try not to go over an hour because some people drift off.
Yes, they do.
But if there was one piece of advice, just one, that anybody listening now who's listening and thinking, I need my voice to be heard, what would be the one piece of advice that you'd give them right now?
To keep trying for your voice to be heard. If someone shuts you down, just keep on going, because there's going to be someone out there who will listen. It might not be the first couple people, but it will happen eventually.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah.
Never give up. Yep. Somebody's going to listen. Somebody's going to listen. And, you know, it took multiple people probably. But then when that one connected with Coco, and it took months for her to finally open up to Miss Rebecca. And it took months, but when she did, she did. And they began to peel away all those layers and stuff. So yeah. Brilliant. Never give up and just keep speaking your truth. You know, keep speaking your truth. And, you know, my perception is my perception. My feelings are my feelings. My truth is my truth. But, you know, it is your truth, and it's okay to be that. So I just keep going, because the level of freedom that we have to live now, oh my gosh. I mean, we lived in what was called survival mode, and I didn't even know it. And I lived there. Yeah, I lived there for, 40 years. I don't even know. That's not a pretty place to live. No. But that's where most of our society lives. But to be able to live in this moment and this day with this freedom. Oh, I love my kid for my freedom. I mean, I'm just.
What you're doing now is not living in survival mode. You're actually living in compassionate mode. You're living in acceptance mode, and you're living in empathic mode too. You're living in a place of safety with each other, and that's what compassion does. It actually brings a sense of safety, both internally to us and actually collectively, because we are wired for compassion. We are literally wired for compassion. Our mammalian brain, in the middle bit of our brain, the oldest kind of part, it's, and we are physically wired for compassion. So you're living it, you're breathing it. And I am so I don't know you very, I know you, I've met you, online, but if I can say, I'm really proud of you and what you have achieved, how you're using your voice to help others now is incredible, and you are unique in that. I want to say that, and both of you to be here today with me, continuing that conversation and joining me today for what I believe is an inspirational conversation has been brilliant, and I can't thank you both enough for being here.
Well, we thank you, and we love Miss Helen. You're like a
Miss Helen. And I love being called Miss Helen.
And I would just encourage you that if you are crazy in your mind right now, do Coco's favorite thing, which is go swing on a swing.
Go swing on a swing.
When Coco needs to decompress, when too much is going on, she needs to swing. So go swing on a swing.
Go swing on a swing.
The world makes sense, right?
I think I need to probably buy a swing, or a trampoline. But just to end, so where can people find you? I know that you have your Facebook page, you've got your website, but just let people know where they can find you and be part of this amazing kind of process that you're doing.
You can tell on the Facebook.
Our Facebook is @Voices of Coffee and Cocoa, where we usually go live on every Tuesday and Friday, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where most of our action happens.
Most of our action. And then I just also launched the TWC Clubhouse.com. So you can find the Coffee and Cocoa link in there as well. But that also includes like book clubs that are coming and different coaches and counselors that'll be added, and just everything that we're working to bring together, because, as I said, I believe that together we can, we've shown through this pandemic what we can do as an entire world, country to country. And so, child sexual abuse, trauma, abuse of itself, social emotional skills,
Mhm.
they're not different from country to country. It's all the same. So you can go to the TWCClubhouse.com, and the site is changing as things keep getting, as things keep coming together. But
I will put the links in the comments as well, so that you know, anybody listening, because there have been quite a few people listening and watching. So I've seen people kind of coming and going, which is good. But not everybody comments all the time.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of people watch on replay, so I'll put the links in the comments as well. So, and I think, you know, anybody watching, anybody listening, please, I encourage you to follow Voices at Coffee and Cocoa, and take a look at the website too. You are both an incredible inspiration. So thank you for being here today with me.
Helen, thank you.
And I could talk to you every week.
I know, right? Well, we are, yeah. So Janet Taylor and I, she's from Ontario, and so bring Canada in there. So we actually have our Building Safer Communities and Normalizing Those Conversations that'll be starting here soon. So you can find that on the Clubhouse website too. So, but it's all about that, finding the compassion. Mm-hmm.
And what an amazing thing that we're all doing, I think.
Yeah.
And having you as part of this conversation today is another layer on that. So thank you very much. I'm gonna end the broadcast now and say to everyone, you know, if you are struggling, if you are needing anything, please reach out. My listening heart ears are always open, and if anybody is watching this and wants to connect with Coffee and Cocoa, I will put the links in the comments, and I will see you next week for another Conversations with Compassion with my guest. My guest next week is Emma, and we'll be delving deep into compassion again with Emma. So I will see you all next week. Thank you, Coffee and Cocoa, again, and much love to everyone with love and compassion. Helen, see you soon.
Bye-bye.